Hello once again. I'm Greg Smart, pastor of Pikeville United Methodist Church in Pikeville, Tennessee, coming with you with some more thoughts on Scripture, this time on the occasion of Mother's Day. Well, the Gospel of John is a much loved gospel. It's a favorite of many. But John is also different. It's different in its tone, it's different in its emphasis, and it's even different in its order of events. So it really should be no surprise that John is also different in its version of the Great Commandment. Now, the Great Commandment as we know it is love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might, and love your neighbor as yourself. But again, John's version is a little bit different. And that difference is more than a matter of wording. So I want you to listen for how it is different here in today's gospel lesson. This is the 15th chapter of John, verses 9 through 13. Jesus said, "As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. If I have said these things to you so that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be complete. And this is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." Well, did you catch it? You know, in the other three Gospels, it is love your neighbor as yourself. But in John's Gospel, it is love others as I have loved you. And that is no accident. John's consistent with that. In fact, in John 13, which is the first place we get his version of the Great Commandment, John is talking about the Last Supper. And this is actually where we get the mandate or mandatum that becomes Maundy Thursday. And here it is that exact same formula. Jesus says, love one another as I have loved you. Now, it's not like either one of those versions is right or wrong. One just happens to be the majority opinion, and the other one, John's, is just different. But both of them have something important to say. Both of them are asking us to reflect on an aspect of love. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Well, that is a reminder that we are to love ourselves, to take care of ourselves, that we too need love and are worthy of love. But it also ties in with the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Or in this case, love others as you would want to be loved. Meanwhile, love others as I have loved you. Well, that completely raises the bar. We are being asked, commanded really, to love the people around us with Christ's perfect love. And although we know we're not going to be perfect in that, John's version does cause us to really reflect on how Jesus loved the people around him, how Jesus loved the disciples, how Jesus loved the widow and the orphan, how Jesus loved the leper, how Jesus loved the sinners. Now, fortunately, in our musings on Jesus' love, John gives us a prime example right there in the next verse. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. Now that one is a bit of a stunner, isn't it? Every time we hear it, it makes us stop in our tracks. And we automatically think of the cross. And then we wonder if we could ever make that kind of sacrifice for someone else. And then we wonder when, under what kind of circumstances we might be asked to make such a sacrifice. Now here the mind quickly, for men anyway, goes to war. Now we think of a battlefield scenario of having to run out under heavy fire and drag a fallen brother to safety. But it turns out there's a much more likely example, an everyday example that is staring us right in the face. Mothers. Just think of all the ways mothers lay down their lives for their children. And, it'd be easy to sit here and talk about the mama bear idea of the mom who's going, oh, don't you threaten my children. I'll be a mama bear. But that doesn't happen much either. We're talking about all those other ways that mothers really do lay down their lives for their children. And such sacrifice begins, at the beginning. There are all kinds of mothers who are willing to go through high-risk pregnancies just to have children. I knew this one woman who, with her first child, the doctor confined her to bed for the final 3 months of her pregnancy. And a couple of years later, she was more than willing to do it again to have a second child. Also, although it's much more rare these days, there was a time when dying while giving birth was a very real possibility. And it's still there. I was really surprised to learn that the United States has the highest pregnancy mortality rate of any industrialized nation. But these are the kinds of risks that mothers are willing to take for children they haven't even met yet. And then there's this one. Every expectant mother knows that her life is going to change dramatically once that child arrives. However that person self-identified before, whatever kind of titles, professional and otherwise, she might have carried. Once that child is there, you become mom. And you carry that title the rest of your days. We're talking about a lifetime of caring for that child, a lifetime of putting that child's life before yours. And you can multiply that by however many children you have. Now, yes, it is a lifetime of love, but it's also a lifetime of worry, heartache, uneasy nights, and wondering if you're being a good mother. Now, those are the lifetime risks. You got to lay down your life for the rest of your life once you have that child. But then there are all the sacrifices you make during the first 18 months or so of your children's lives. Now, these would include all the effort that goes into making sure your children have something healthy to eat and clean clothes to wear. The hours spent baking cookies or brownies for school and other organizations. Helping your child with that big project that, of course, your child announced the night before it was due. And let's not forget all the evenings and weekends you will surrender so you can go to your child's events. And of course, we're only talking about the sacrifices so far that you would find in the American dream version of motherhood, the ideal version. There is a whole other level of sacrifices when the cards never seem to be in your favor. And just think of all the mothers who have to go it alone, either due to death, divorce, or deadbeat. These are mothers who hold the family together while everything else falls apart. Mothers who keep that family together no matter how many times they have to move, even when there's no place to go. Mothers who are willing to go to bed hungry, so at least their children will have something to eat at night. Mothers who will work more than one job to pay the bills and make sure their children don't have to go without. And yes, mothers who are willing to do whatever it takes to protect their children, like this mother who went viral last summer.
Was the one moment from the chaos in Baltimore that had people cheering for more.
Mother of the Year.
I leaped out of my chair and said, yes!
I was captivated.
Captivated by a Baltimore mother reading the riot act to her 16-year-old son. To remove him from the riot, we now know her name is Toya Graham, and she's a single mom of 5 girls and a boy. Here's what she told CBS News about her brand of tough love.
That's my only son, and at the end of the day, I don't want him to be a Freddie Gray.
The Baltimore man whose death in police custody sparked protests, her tough discipline won muttered admiration and outright applause.
Of a mother desperately trying to keep her son from joining the rioters. And you know, she saw. Yeah!
She quickly started to trend on Twitter, #BaltimoreMom. She went to pick up her son at the mall because she heard trouble was brewing there.
He said, Mom, when I seen you, my instinct was to run. You know, I'm a no-tolerant mother. He knew he was in trouble.
The video was shared and analyzed from the right.
Like, look, right there is the moment that I think just gripped my heart.
And the left.
Here's a kid that'll take a brick and throw at a cop, but ducks when his mother comes and slap him.
Is he the perfect boy? No, he's not. But he's mine.
Send in the moms, read one headline. Maybe you really are the mother of all moms when you can inspire this kind of look in your tough guy son. Jeannie Mo, CNN, New York.
Now that's a mother who was willing to stick her nose right into the midst of the danger zone. She wasn't thinking, she was reacting, and she was going to do whatever to get her child to safety. And you might think she was completely justified. You might think she went too far. But honestly, it doesn't matter what you think, because you are not in her shoes, and you don't live in her neighborhood. But her example does raise another question. We have seen that we really are willing to make sacrifices. We really are willing to lay down our lives for others, at least for our children. But when we are making those sacrifices, how do we know we're doing the right thing? And the simple answer is we don't know. And we can't know, because we're not God. We don't have God's perfect knowledge. So we don't know how things will turn out, not in the short term, not in the long run. And yet, we can have perfect love. Here's how that works. When you are doubting something that you have done, some decision you have made, or something you have said, ask yourself this: did you do it out of love for that person? If the answer is yes, then even if it felt like you made a mess of things, there was still perfect love behind it. And you really ought to be able to make peace with that. Anyway, the point here is that most of us already know how to lay down our lives for someone else, because we grew up with a living example of that. Now it's just a matter of extending that to the people around us, the neighbor, as per the Great Commandment. And even though you may not always be able to figure out how Jesus would love that person, you sure know how to love that neighbor the same way your mother loved you. That's it for today. I hope you will wish your mother a happy Mother's Day. and I will see you next week.